Have a chance to win a signed Messi shirt from the World Cup. And which are the best FPL attacks in the league? Welcome to the Gianni YouTube show. Hope you guys are well. We're going to look at some attacking data because we've had 4 game weeks now to assess. So let's look at some of those best attacks with regards to teams and then also identify some players. And when we look at some of the best numbers, there are some players in there and you're like, why haven't I considered them as an FPL option? So let's kick off with the teams. Now, we're going to give you some data here, some of which you'll be aware of, and some you'll be thinking, okay, I didn't know they were quite that good. So let's look at the top 8 teams just for goal attempts, all right? We're going to look at expected data later, but just plain and simple, how many times does X team have an attempt on goal? Off target, on target, doesn't matter. Well, it might surprise you that Brighton are by far the most trigger happy when it comes to shots. So Brighton, and we knew this from last season under De Zerbi, 83 shots. This is why the Brighton attack needs covering. Yes, they've had good fixtures, but even through the tough fixtures, I don't want to sell Matoma, or I don't want to sell my Brighton attacker. So 83 for Brighton, second, but 10 behind. That is a huge, huge difference. At 73, we got Spurs. Again, Ange Postecoglou sides, we were warned, are going to shoot on sight. You know, they clocked 34 shots in their first pre-season game under Postecoglou. They lost the game, but they clocked shots, West Ham. So Brighton, Spurs. Then we've got Palace, 69 shots, but then just behind City, 68. Probably surprised though, aren't you, that City aren't top of this. Chelsea at 67. They really have flattered to deceive in front of goal. They've clocked good numbers in terms of shots, but haven't been putting them away. And then to complete the top 8, we got 3 big teams here on 65 shots. United, Liverpool, Arsenal. So what does this all tell us? Well, it tells us Brighton are up there with the best attacks in the league. City, yeah, they're not blowing everyone away. But Spurs, if you want to double up on a Son and a Maddison, I'm looking to do that. Absolutely fine. But also, it tells us there's no Brentford. Yet we're all looking at Mbomo and going, Brentford attack needs covering. Now, this is purely goal attempts, right? This doesn't take into account how big those attempts are. And that's why expected data, in terms of expected goals, is a metric I really like. So let's now look at the expected goals per 90 that each team clocks. Because Brentford aren't in the top 8 for shots, but they're right at the top of the charts when it comes to the XG, a stat I really like. So let's look at, this is from the Scout members area, right? We're ranking all 20 teams best for expected goals per 90. Every 38.7 minutes, this is what the data suggests, Brentford clock 1 XG. Really, really strong. Best in the league. Man City just not far behind. So they clock an expected goal every 43 minutes. So look, if you're clocking an XG every 38 minutes like Brentford, you're averaging like 2.5, 2.6 goals a game, is that off the top of my head? And again, that's why Mbomo has been such a great asset. But what Brentford do really well is, and they did this last year, they don't create tons of chances in a game, but the chances they create are really big chances. And I don't know what Thomas Frank does, and I need to look into this, but Thomas Frank Brentford in the Premier League don't create a ton, which is why the shot volume's never that high, but the chances they create are much bigger on average than all the other teams. And this is why Mbomo's been such a good asset. Now, obviously, he's had a couple of penalties, but look, there's been other teams with penalties. City have had penalties. Brighton have had penalties. And now the top 3, Man City, Brighton, Brentford. Chelsea right up there. Again, they should be scoring every half of football they play in, and they're just not. Also, monitor, Villa have been impressive. And again, many of us don't own an Aston Villa attacker. Arsenal, Liverpool, United, all in and around that sort of those top positions. Spurs slightly lower down. Again, Spurs have been overachieving their XG. We can see there, plus 3.65 on their delta. So again, the stats suggest that they're really efficient with their finishing. They're scoring from lower XG chances. And when we look at some of those minus XG delta stats, look at Chelsea, minus 3.42. They should have scored 3.42 more goals than they have. Are you liking all this data? Is it too much? Let me know in the comments if the data heavy. Because you guys know I'm more of an eye test manager, but I have to, and all managers have to do this, balance data with eye test. So let me know if it's something you like. I like to every now on this channel do data heavy shows, but I'm conscious at the same time it's not my natural ball game to do it. But I always think the best managers have to incorporate eye test with stats. And that's something I've been doing increasingly as I've used the Scout members area. Let's look right to the bottom of this list, shall we? I think in the middle of the table, other than Spurs, there's not too many teams we're interested in. But the bottom's really useful because it can show teams to target. And look, we'll do a best and worst defences show in a couple of days' time. But when we're looking at attack, the numbers have been really poor for Sheffield United and Burnley and Fulham. And Forest are right down there, despite Awani being quite a good FPL option. And we'll speak about individuals in just a second. Luton, not too bad. And let's not forget, Luton are bottom of the charts with most metrics in our head, but they're fifth bottom here. And they do have a double game week coming up. And I do wonder if Morris might make our way into some of our teams because the double game week fixtures aren't too bad. And in that double game week, we know most of us have a wildcard up our sleeve. So you could dead end your team for someone like Morris and then transfer him out in, say, game week 8-9 when you wildcard. That's an option. So look, the best teams we've looked at. We're not surprised by the data we've seen, other than Brentford being top of the charts and perhaps realising actually, if you've backed Chelsea, this is why. They've been getting the chances. So don't feel the need to sell your Chelsea assets, okay? Definitely don't. Let's look at some of the individuals though. But before we do, I mentioned the signed Messi shirt. There's one there. Not signed by the big man. This clip will explain how you can win a signed Messi shirt. Win a signed Messi shirt from the World Cup. More on that in just a sec. But this is going to change the way you bet with your mates. It's fair play exchange. Whether it's betting on the football at the weekend or the winner of the Rugby World Cup, this is all tracked. It's electronic and it's cashless. And look, everyone that downloads the app is automatically going to be entered into a draw to win a signed Messi shirt. Yes, that's right. The GOAT himself has signed one of these shirts. I want to trade mine in. If I could, I would. So look, no more chasing your mates for that bet that everyone's forgotten about. You know, that £10 bet you put on at the pub 6 months ago? Yeah, you'll get that tenner if you bet on Fair Play. So get ready to share this app in your WhatsApp group because it's going to change the way you bet with your mates. And remember, someone is going to win the Messi shirt. Here we go, the individuals. Let's have a look at some of the data, and it's not surprising here. And Bomo, top of the charts. Now, of course, he's had a couple of pens, but again, I don't want to filter this with non-penalty numbers because penalties are part of the game, and lots of these players are on pens. Haaland, on pens at number 2. Bruno, on pens at number 4. Saka's had pens at number 5, and Maddison at 6, and Jackson at 7. Well, they could both be penalty takers as well. We don't quite know who's on them at Spurs and Chelsea, but I think it will be Son at Spurs, and I think it will be Enzo again or Reece when he's fit at Chelsea. But let's look at the numbers from Bomo because this is super impressive. Why is he not in my team? Why is he not? I mean, how is he still not in my team? Every week there seems to be another priority transfer. Last week it was Maddison. And look, I was rewarded by going Maddison. I think he probably got very similar points to Mbomo, if not the same. And this week, again, it's Son, not Mbomo. But 71 minutes, every 71 minutes, he's like clocking an expected goal involvement. Now, remember, this is the assists as well as the goal threat. He's even above Haaland. Even above Haaland. Evan Ferguson, super impressive. The fear with Ferguson is the guarantee of minutes to start, reported injury as well. So I'd be swerving Ferguson for now. But then look, it's Bruno and Saka so high. Now this is a week, many of us are looking at what midfielders we're selling. Are we trading in our Arsenal or our United mids for Heung-min Son? Now, I've got to sell Foden. I've got to sell Saka, or I've got to sell Rashford. So again, you're selling good players here. Now, Foden doesn't feature in this list, but Bruno's high. Rashford's down there towards the bottom, but again, he still makes the shortlist. He's clocking every 138 minutes. Not bad. Game and a half. Every game and a half, he's clocking an expected goal involvement. So they're good assets, but Son, whilst he's not in this list, now he's playing number 9. If he carries on the way he's been playing, I think he's a player we all want. But Bruno would be a very reluctant sell with these numbers, as would Saka. And I wonder if Rashford is the answer there. for those that have got, say, Arsenal, Man United mids, you're not sure which one, I think Rashford could be the easier sell short term and maybe with a view to bringing him back. Although we saw against Arsenal on the counter-attack, he playing wide, he looks so much better. But again, some of the United fixtures might not necessarily be Rashford-style fixtures coming up. And we'll look at that fixture ticker in just a sec. Maddison and Jackson, popular assets, really high. Salah, in years gone by, has been much higher than this. And then look, Awani, I mentioned, and Bowen. Enzo Fernandez, keep your eye on him. Like, never been known for his goals or assists, but playing in a new advanced role, definitely on my radar as a 5 million midfielder on penalties and all of the set pieces. Let's check out those fixtures though, because I mentioned Man United and I mentioned Arsenal. And here's the fixture ticker just for the next 4 game weeks. You might say, why have you only done 4 game weeks, Gianni? Well, this is just, let's go with 4, knowing so many, including perhaps myself, will wildcard off the back of this. So ahead of game week 9, the next international break, many might wildcard. So let's just look at the next 4 weeks. And again, like this is why you don't sell your Chelsea assets. Look at the fixtures they've got. Worth noting, Newcastle now coming into the mix on the tickers, but Man United so much higher than Arsenal. However, I'm caveating this. Man United, we can see at the top, they've got Brighton, Burnley, Palace and Brentford. And Arsenal, all the way down towards the bottom, have got Everton, Spurs, Bournemouth, but then Man City. If we took this ticker just in the next 3 weeks, Arsenal and Man United would be level pegging, right? But because we've gone up to game week 8 when Arsenal play when Arsenal play Man City, the fixture ticker for Saka doesn't look as good as Rashford. But you could take game week 9 out of the equation game week 8 out of the equation, because you could simply go, it's game week 8, I'm wildcarding next week in game week 9. I'm going to sell Arsenal or even maybe Man City players. Maybe we sell Saka, we sell Haaland, because they're playing each other. I don't know if I'll have the minerals to sell Haaland, but definitely Saka I would for that fixture. So worth noting that there's very little to split Arsenal and Man United in the ticker, certainly for the next 3 game weeks. So with that in mind, shall we do a little comparison between Saka and Rashford? Because I'm still shortlisting these as 2 of my possible sales this week. And again, I think it's really useful to look at the data from the season so far, because these guys have been matching each other pretty much for minutes. Like Saka's on 358, Rashford 351. This is a fair test. Now, you might say Rashford has played more minutes down the middle and that's not where he'll be playing. Fine. But even when he's played centrally, we can see from these comparisons in terms of average position maps, he drifts left anyway, right? So we can see Saka there, always in the same role. Rashford doesn't have those big sections of red, but that's because he's not that involved. When you look at the touches, almost double, I think, Saka in terms of touches. He's far more involved. So let's look at the numbers we really care about, though. We often don't care about touches for our attacking players. We just want the goal threat, the assist threat. Now, the goals, Saka has scored 2-1 on Rashford's 1, and the XG follows suit there. Saka should have scored 2.23, Rashford 1.41. So they're both close to where they should be. The assist threat, again, Saka is higher. Actually been a tad unlucky, Saka. He should be on closer to 2 assists, 1.61. He's got the 1. Rashford, 1.11. He's also got the 1. This is where it gets interesting, though, because when these players return, especially if you're giving them the armband, if you're ever going against Haaland, you go, I need the extra points. And if they get a goal or an assist, do I get the extra 2 or 3 bonus points? Now with Saka, when he returns, he'll get you the extra points because his baseline BPS is fairly good at 55 so far. Rashford has clocked a 7 collectively in his baseline. That is terrible. If you're wondering what baseline BPS is, the bonus point system, it's like 32, 34 metrics. And those metrics, sure, there's the sexy ones like goals and assists, but many of them are the underlying stats. And the baseline is just the stuff that's away from the classic returns like clean sheets, goals, assists. So the stuff like pass completion or tackles, interceptions, blocks, successful dribbles, all of that stuff is part of your baseline. And you need that if you're going to do well in the bonus point system on top of your returns. Rashford's notoriously really bad at it. Salah's another one really bad at it. But Saka, more involved, more all action, better team player, you could argue. Therefore, his baseline is good. And his penalty area touches is higher as well. Now, knowing the fixtures as we do, knowing in game week 8 I might be up for selling a Saka anyway, I look at these numbers and go, if I'm selling one this week, it should be Rashford. I think it should be. And again, like when we look at their fixtures, if we just take game week 5, okay, Everton away, goodish fixture. United have Brighton at home. I prefer Saka's fixture, I think. There's very little between it. Then it's Burnley for United and Arsenal have Tottenham. So okay, you prefer United's fixture, but then after that, United have Crystal Palace, tougher fixture than Arsenal who have Bournemouth. So that's where I'm at with it. At the moment, I think I'll be selling Saka or even Foden, and we'll do a comparison in a couple of shows' time about Foden before the game week 5 deadline. Guys, also, final point from me, members area. Have you seen it? I've launched a YouTube members. I've got squad members and ultras members. Check out the tiers, $2.99 for squad. I'll prioritise all your comments in the chat and in the comments to make sure I'm getting back to you as a priority. Certainly some members only posts as well on the community tab. And then the ultras, you can join a WhatsApp group with me. I'm proper vocal with videos and voice notes on my morning dog walks. So do check out those tiers. Thank you for watching the video. We'll see you very soon. Before you leave, if you fancy hitting that like button, I'd really appreciate it. See you soon.